Welcome back to Two Guys in the Outdoors. We're going to continue that discussion on deer hunting in Virginia, focusing in on November, prime time. So please subscribe, leave a comment, share this with some friends. Enjoy the show.
All right, now we get into the second week of November, which we're going to be getting into our muzzleloading season. Now you're going to start to see some rut activity. You're going to start to see your bigger bucks starting to travel and move. Now your calling gets more effective. You see that buck, you're going to start to see more scrapes. A scrape is an area that a buck paws out on the ground. Typically it's underneath of a young sapling or an overhanging limb that's about 5 foot off the ground. And that limb is called a licking branch. So like you talked about earlier, that gland, they're going to rub their head and that gland in there saying, hey, here I am. And then they're going to urinate into that scrape. I love scrape hunting. I'll even create mock scrapes. And that deer will urinate there, and then does that come into estrus will visit that scrape, urinate in that scrape, and then that lets that buck know, hey, I've got a doe that is ready to breed in my area. And so that buck will continue to come back and check that scrape. Now, when I say check the scrape, they won't necessarily walk right up to it, stick their nose in it. They might wind it from 20, 30, 40, 50 yards away downwind. They can come in and work that scrape, but they will check that scrape line. So what's going on at that time of year is your bucks are going to get a little bit more aggressive, and you can get a little bit more aggressive with your calling. So this is what I call a tending grunt, and it's a you get that drawn out, and then you get that click, 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 click. That is a buck that is actually tending a doe. So you get into that second week, third week of November, that can be a very effective call. Because what happens is that buck up on the ridge or down the river bottom or wherever out of sight hears that, and he's like, oh, one of my buddies has a hot doe up there. I'm going to go in and investigate. So again, it's a
now this is the start of rut.
This is the start of the rut, the very beginning of the rut. This is not pre-rut.
So
this is rut.
this is where they're totally loony.
Yeah, this is that second, third week of November. Then we go into the lull. So what happens is these bucks, a doe will be in estrus, but they will not let that buck breed them until they're ready. And so those does will be running. You'll see the bucks, they'll have their noses down the ground. You'll hear a lot of as they're running after that doe, but that doe doesn't want anything to do with that buck. That's what we call chasing. That's what all of us hunters get excited about, chasing, right? Because bucks are stupid, they're running around, they're doing dumb stuff.
And that's when the most accidents are happening.
And that's when most of our big deer get harvested, because they're doing this in the daylight. So after that, you get into the last week of November, that first week of December, or the last week of November, tail end of the third week, the last week of November, you might not see nothing. I mean, it's like the woods are dead. And what happens is those bucks get those does in thickets, creek bottoms, and they're actually breeding. All right. So the does are allowing them, so they're not running around anymore. Bucks are not chasing anymore because they have what they want. They're locked down, and so you see very little deer activity.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting in your stand, you're out in the woods, and you're like, what in the world? And that is the rut. That is deer breeding. All right. Then the tail end of that, so you get into the last week of November, you might see a little bit of chasing, and then deer go back to feeding, food sources, bedding areas, things like that. And then you get into December, and the does that were not bred will come back into heat, and you're going to see some of that activity take place again.
You'll that's see where they talk about the second rut.
Yeah, the second rut. So you're going to see some bucks running. Now you got to remember, a lot of bucks have been harvested, so there's not as many deer. But that second rut, and that second rut can be very, very exciting as well. You typically don't see as much activity, but you're going to see some of those bucks cruising. Mm-hmm. And all that good stuff.
Right? Now let's just put this all in perspective. Okay, so that pre-rut, the October, first part of November, that's primarily just archery. Okay,
and muzzleloader.
Mm-hmm. Here shortly. Okay, so during the actual rut, when everybody goes crazy, from the deers to the hunters,
that's going to be okay. That's
fire or general fire.
That's your second week of October. Second
November.
week of November.
Third week around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, typically your last week of muzzleloading, depending on where you are in the state, and that first week of general firearms.
Yeah. So that's, but you can, if you're an archer, like Jason and I, you can still hunt with archery equipment. Absolutely. During those times. Absolutely. You can hunt archery equipment through the entire area. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you can only hunt your general firearm during that one part, and they put it there simply because of the rut.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? So, because that's what many more people will do general firearms than they do archery.
Okay? That's the deer management. That's the way to manage deer is through harvesting and all that good stuff.
Now that second rut, that's primarily muzzleloaders and definitely archery.
Yep, unless you're the eastern part of the state, then rifle or what we call general firearm will stay in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So here again, check your game laws.
Yeah. No.
For me, you can't.
So that's kind of
that's the timeline.
Yeah, that's kind of an overview of, to be a good deer hunter, you got to know the animal. Mm-hmm. You got to know food sources, bedding areas. You got to know what deer are going, and know the time of year that they're going it. And so, when this video posts, we're getting into prime time. So, get out there, go hunting. Even if you don't really know where to find them or what to do, this is the time. Yeah, you won't find them behind the computer or behind your phone. You won't find them on the couch. Okay, you have to get out in the woods. Yep.
Okay,
and that's the time of year that it can happen. Mm-hmm. Anytime, any place, anywhere, because they're starting to cruise. They're starting to find does. It's the most exciting time of the year for deer hunting.
So let me give you a little secret, and I know Jason's done this. Okay, you'll hear that sound, and you'll get tricked by it sometimes, and sometimes you get tricked the other way. Okay, sometimes squirrels will sound like deer. Okay, and I think they do that purpose. Okay, but sometimes you think it's just a squirrel kind of rustling through the leaves, and that deer's going to pop out.
Yep.
Okay, it's happened to me twice. Actually, two of my deer that I have here in Virginia came just like that because I thought it was a squirrel, and all of a sudden, whoa, that's a deer.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
so pay attention to what you hear, okay? Because what you think is a squirrel rustling for some nuts there could be a deer. Okay? And they'll come in very quiet. The one I got on Monday, I just happened to be looking around, and then he just came out of nowhere. And it was just right there. So,
Hey, keep it simple and go hunting.
get out in the outdoors and have some fun.
See you next time.
See ya.
Hey, I hope you like that. We're going to get into a lot more with the deer hunting piece of it, get into a little bit more details, take it all the way to what you need to do to get it to your table. So hopefully you enjoy it. Please subscribe, leave a comment, share this with a friend. Let us know what you like and what you don't like. We're trying to grow this, and we're trying to make this what you want to hear. So give us some input. Appreciate you. Thanks. Good luck, everyone.